In today's video, we got the latest greatest from Creality, which is the Ender-3 version 3. As we can see, the model lives on in versions, but not only that, this one here is a CoreXZ, which is quite unique to the V3. So I'm super excited to see what it's all about. So in this video, we're gonna unbox it, set it up, and do some press. All right, so this is the V3 Ender-3, and it's quite interesting to see how it keeps going and going with different iterations and versions. This is what it comes in. Here we can see the measurements of the box, and the weight is about 20 pounds. Let's go ahead and open it up. So we got dark, soft foam. Right on top, we got the quick installation guide with some stickers and warranty card. Here on the first layer, we have the spool holder, which is a molded plastic, looks like, and the holder that clips onto it. Some filament, a sample, white PLA, a PTFE tubing, some kind of bracket with clips, the display, which is in this electrostatic bag, pretty nice and large, and that's where we plug it in right there. We got a box with a clean out plunger, some tools, Allen wrenches, flathead, and a dedicated wrench for the nozzle. Some hardware bolts, a few zip ties, a pair of snippers, and these are really nice to cut filament on an angle. We also get some grease to lubricate like the leads, and a USB thumb drive that's unmarked. All right, and that's everything here for the first layer. Going down lower, we can see the gantry here on top, which is the upper portion. And there's actually a few more things here, which we have this contraption here, which I'm not sure exactly, it looks like part of a spool holder, like a spring on here. And it is 3D printed. Huh, very interesting. We also get a power cable, looks like about 4 feet long. So let's go ahead and pull out the gantry. And it's actually not too big and not too heavy, and it is like a one-piece cast metal, what it looks like. Maybe you guys can see, but we got 2 motors here and a CoreXZ configuration with the double belt going around. And there's quite a few interesting things to see here, but we'll go a little more in detail about the build and all the features in a bit. And so below the gantry, we got the base, and we can see that we do have a PEI build plate. So it's actually quite compact. You guys can tell the build plate size there, which is, it says right here in the front, 220 by 220. So yeah, it's quite small compared here to the build plates. So yeah, pretty excited to see everything in detail. But for now, that is everything for the box. Very well packed, lots of foam for protection. Let's get this thing out of the way, and we'll bring the base back in and set it upside down. And right off the bat here, I really like these squishy rubber feet. They're quite unique looking. So yeah, there's 4 of them, and it looks like they're just glued on here to the bottom of this metal plate. And we got some venting here. So let's go ahead and take off this bottom part and see what's inside. We'll get the wrench we need, and there are 8 little bolts going around. All right, so let's see if we can pull this plate up. And look at that, we do have a fan attached. All right, so let's take a closer look here. So over here we can see the main board. It's quite large. It does say Creality on it, right in the middle. It looks like a very integrated kind of board and lots of chips, and definitely looks quite upscale for sure. Looks like the steppers are integrated and cooling fins are right there. Got a ribbon cable here, it says to main, and goes out the side. USB port there, our Y-axis motor. Here we have a splitter on this side where the power comes in. And yeah, everything just looks very well managed. And this whole base here looks like it's some kind of cast aluminum or something. So very nice. And our power supply here looks pretty generic. It is Creality branded, 24 volt, 14.6 amps. And all the connections look nicely crimped and tightened. And yeah, overall looks like a very clean execution here under the V3. So putting the printer together should not be very hard. We got a quick installation guide that gets you started here, all the parts that are included, and the steps to assemble the printer. And it looks like we start with the gantry and spool holder. And then we have a pretty important step here to check our voltages, because it appears to be that it will be blocked. So maybe we should do that first. And if we look here, guys, there's a little sticker here that tells us to check the voltage before we do anything else, which is right here. You can see an opening. It is switched to 230 volts, which is not correct for me. I need to go to 115. So I'm going to switch that to the correct voltage of 115 volts. So depending on where you live, you need to make sure that you're on the correct setting. So let's go ahead and grab the gantry. And here on this side, you guys can see there's a couple bolts, and that's actually where the spool holder clips on, literally right here, which is kind of interesting that they want us to go ahead and do that now. But yeah, it just literally drops in and then kind of goes down to click in, and it's holding itself. And so then we're gonna raise the gantry up, and it's literally gonna sit down on both ends there, just like that. And so now we're gonna need 8 M4 bolts that go from the bottom. There's 2 on each side, and then to the front there, also 2 on each side. And that's this baggie of bolts here. And grab the correct Allen wrench. We will need to peel this sticker to get to the bolt holes. So we'll go ahead and do these 2, and then we'll go to the other side, and then we'll flip it to the side and do the bottom. So I'm just gonna kind of start them, but not tighten them, as we don't want to tighten anything until all the screws are in. Then same thing here. So we want this thing to make sure it sits down correctly. This is why we're not tightening these yet, but now that they're in there, we can actually move it around without worrying about it falling all apart. So when you do go to the side, make sure you're not sitting on any kind of wires or anything. But yeah, if we look under here, there's 2 holes here and 2 holes here, and that's where the rest of our little bolts will go. So yeah, guys, this is actually quite easy, and literally appears like the only assembly that we need to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and snug these bottom ones up. And if you want to, you can run this all the way down, as it will kind of help spread these correctly between the 2 before tightening everything up. And also, you do want to be kind of careful to over tighten these, because this is aluminum extrusion, so the threads are not as strong as if it would be metal. So be careful not to over tighten, just kind of snug, and that's it. We do have 4 bolts on each side, so there should be plenty of strength. So now that we got the bottom tight, we can go ahead and tighten these up completely. Go to the other side. All right, so now our base is connected to the gantry. So for the next part, we're going to be connecting our screen, which goes right here. It's quite simple. We're just going to plug this ribbon cable into the back of the screen, and then this will just clip on. So let's go ahead and peel this sticker, grab the cable. So the best way to do this is just lay the screen down, and then I'll lift it up kind of to plug it in. You guys obviously can't see this, but yeah, you're just lifting it up to plug it in. And once it clicks in, you carefully just line it up with the grooves and then kind of go down. And that's it. The screen is on. And that's pretty much the extent of putting things together. The other thing that we need to do is just plug the wires in, which is not very hard. We have a wire here for the ZX motor. Well, I guess this one here says Z. And then on the other side, this one is the X. And we also have a little wire here that's for a switch up onto the top that also needs to be plugged in, just like that. And then our last wire here, which says D on it, and the other one's just like a black plug. So the D is gonna go here into the filament detector. You guys can see that. And there's like a little wire clip here that can hold the whole cable. And then our other end will go into the hot end on the back of it here, and that plugs in. Now here we can, or probably not just can, but need to put a little zip tie, as there's little holes here for it to hold it all together. And that's actually going to be the strain relief here for this cable. Also, we have this tube here, and that's going to go from the filament detector, which is right here next to the wire. So we're just going to push that in, make sure it's nice and locked in there. And then the other end is going to go into the hot end, and we're literally just going to push that down till it grabs, which actually doesn't go far down at all. It just kind of goes a little and grabs. And that is it. So it might be a good idea to go ahead and zip tie these two together. That way they kind of stay together. So I'm gonna grab a couple zip ties here and go ahead and do that. And there we go. And we're looking nice and tidy here with all of our wiring and PTFE tubing. And believe it or not, guys, that is everything to the assembly, plugging in and putting it together. Well, except for this little foam here. I guess we do need to pull this out. But yeah. Well, guys, I just realized that I did all this part wrong. So there's actually hardware for clipping the wires together, and also a bracket that clips right here that holds this wire here. So yeah, this is why it's probably important to look at the instruction manual a little closer. But yeah, here we have little clips that go around or through the PTFE tubing and then clip onto the wire itself. And then this bracket here actually clips in right here, and it literally just clips on and it holds the wire down. Very nice. And then for these, I guess I could leave the zip ties, but yeah, you would use this instead. All right, so let's take a closer look at this printer. So here on the top, we can see there's a Creality logo. This is all one piece. It's cast aluminum, actually everything is, meaning the base and the upper portion here. Very smooth, clean design. Looks very nice, but all of the details here are on the back side, and maybe you guys can see, but we got a double belts, meaning there's two belts going around, and this is actually a CoreXZ machine. So this part, which is the X back and forth this way and up and down, is on a CoreXY system with these two motors on the bottom. So we got one belt here and another belt here, and then through some pulleys to the Hotend assembly. And this is where you guys can see the double belts on each side. Yeah, very unique design, and it's quite unique that it's in this configuration. Usually we see them horizontally like this for the X and Y. So essentially this is a bed slinger with a CoreXZ gantry. So we can see there's a lot of details here. There's rollers, little switch. Everything is running on rods, as you guys can see, including the Y-axis. There are some plastic components, but everything looks very well built. We have our filament detector on this side that plugs in our wire routing. I zip tied these together, but it does come with these clips here that you can use to hold these together. Now, one thing that's very interesting on this printer is this Hotend assembly. So on the back here, it looks like we have the parts cooler, which maybe is a little hard to see, but there's a vent here that blows underneath. And if we go to the front, we can kind of see it looks familiar somewhat on the K-series style. We've got the lock and unlock here, so it is a direct drive extruder all built in. So this PTFE hose doesn't need to be there, meaning the only reason it's there is because it feeds off this spool holder here. And so you do have to push it through all the way until the extruder can grab it and pull it through. So we also have another fan on the front. So there's actually dual fans. And I believe this is also a cooling fan or a parts cooling fan, but yeah, let's go ahead and take off these two little bolts on each side and we'll take a closer look inside. All right, so the little bolts are out and this should just pop up. There's a couple little tabs on the top here. And then it slides out. And I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect the fan, which by the way is glued on there. So yeah, we can see much better here that this piece is a parts cooling blower fan that blows underneath the nozzle right there. There's ports. So it's got dual cooling around the nozzle and then here on the side from the back. And right away you guys can see we have a ceramic heat block, which is a 60 watt with a silicone sock around it. So this looks very similar to like the K1s, which looks very nice. We've got the heat break here, the heat break cooling fan, it's very small. And here we have the main junction board and logic to the whole thing. And on the top here, you can kind of see the extruder arm and the extruders towards the back there. So Creality has definitely refined these all-in-one Hotends, and this one looks also very nicely built. We do have some LEDs there, and I think if we look inside this cover, this is clear. The Creality logo probably lights up, which is really nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug this thing in and put it back on. All right, so going down, we can see we have the build plate, and this is a 220 by 220 by 250 build volume, which is a pretty good medium. But what you guys can see is this printer is quite compact, as our build plate is almost as big as our base. So this is a PEI sheet. It does pull right up. It's like a flexible sheet. and it's textured on one side, so meant to print only on this part. We got a little picture there of the nozzle purge area, and yeah, very nice build plate. There's a magnetic mat underneath, and if we flip around to the back, we can see the wire that comes to the build plate is strain relieved. The bed is heated and also insulated, as you guys can see there. And on this one, what's interesting is the bed frame is also aluminum, and on top of that has these special sensors here on each of the edges. So I believe the whole bed itself is pressure sensitive. And again, we are rolling on rails, and these are larger than these. We got our y-axis belt here, then the gear with the motor that runs it. These ends here are plastic. Same thing here for the front side. And on the back corner, we have the manufacturing label, which gives us a little more information about the printer. Here we can see the X and Z motors in CoreXY configuration. Also, we didn't see these springs, but when the gantry comes all the way down, it kind of starts compressing the spring. And I'm guessing that helps with slowing down the inertia on the way down. On this side here, also, we have this little plug that we plugged in, and it just goes up here to that switch. So the whole base is cast aluminum, very nice finish. We got venting, power input port, it's fused, and we have the on and off switch. Very nice large rubber feet on 4 corners. And on this side we can see, which is actually on the right side, if we're looking at the front, this is the back, is our spool holder, and it literally just clips on here onto the side, and this piece locks into here. Going back to the front, let's put our plate back on, and we got little grooves there with end stops, bolts to line it up. Very simple, and also tabs. We got our USB port there. On the other side, it's clean. We got a logo there, and our main part here is the screen, which is quite large. It is 4.3 inch touchscreen. Let's go ahead and pull the protector off of it. So yeah, what we got here is a ultra fast, direct drive, high temperature 3D printer. And not only that, it looks really good here sitting on the table, and it's got a really nice clean profile. So for next part, let's plug it in, power it up, check, make sure everything's working, and we'll start our first print. All right, so I got the printer plugged in. Let's go ahead and power it up. We'll hit the switch in the back. And right away here, I can see that the Creality logo is glowing, which is pretty neat. We got the screen booting up. And here it's prompting us through the process, which the first part, we're going to choose our language. So it's already selected on English. We'll click next. So we got to agree to a few things. Here we can set up our network, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, so we're connected. There's a little check mark. Click next. So you're going to set your time zone. Click next after that. So here we have a QR code, and this is to connect the printer to your phone. So I'm going to skip this part, but it's quite simple. You just follow the instructions. So the next part is going to do a self check. So it says make sure you got your build plate on there, and it's going to take around 15 minutes. So we'll go ahead and let it do that. So it's going to do nozzle heating, bed heating, heat break fan, main board fan, input shaping, and then outer leveling. So yeah, quite a few things it does to make sure everything works. So it does check itself, which is great. So I'm going to let it do all this, and we'll be back after it's done. Alright, so it's done with all of its checks and everything. Probably notice it does go up a lot, and that's because the home is actually right here all the way up and to that side. And because of the CoreXZ configuration on our gantry, it travels up and down very quickly. Alright, so let's push OK here in the completed. And we saw our main menu there for a second, and we have a version update. So let's go ahead and update it. It says download. And that's the great thing about these newer Crealities is once you connect it to Wi-Fi, it talks to the mothership and gets all the updates it needs, install itself and reboot and everything, and you're good to go. So we're gonna let that finish up, and then we'll load up some filament and start the first print. Alright, so it looks like we rebooted, and we get a little tip here. It would be a good idea to recalibrate everything. So I guess we need to go ahead and do the input shaping and the out of bed leveling again, and that's going to take about 11 minutes. Yeah. Alright, so it's done with that, and you guys can see there's a feature where the screen completely turns off to preserve itself. So if we touch it, it comes back, it says complete, and we are done here. So let's take a closer look here at the menus. So here on the side we got hot buttons, and then right here in the middle we can see we had some graphs. So the blue up there is for the nozzle and the greens for the bed. Here we have a couple icons. We're connected to Wi-Fi. It looks like filament detector. We got fan controls here, which is also in the settings. I guess the hot button. And here we have numbered temperatures for the bed and the nozzle. So yeah, in the settings we have movements and temperature, which we can home the printer here and adjust certain things. We got extruder controls, and then cooling is what we saw with the fans. Here we have files. So we actually have internal storage and quite a few files in it. That's pretty neat. So we can definitely do some test prints. But yeah, up here we can see local USB drive. So that's going to read the drive here on the side. And then history of what we printed, which we don't have anything right there. So below that we have settings, the screen brightness up and down. I might turn that down a little bit. Well, maybe it's about right anyways, but screen turn off, 3 minutes. We can put never, which I think I'll just leave it on. Our language, the self check, if you need to do your input shaping and auto leveling. Account information, update reminder is toggled on. Time zone, this is where you're going to bind to the app. Export logs, the version, reset to default, expert mode, and about. And then on the bottom here we have with frequently asked questions and an online manual. We got error history here, and you can upload your logs. So yeah. So for the next part, let's go ahead and load some filament. I got some Hyper Series Creality filament, so it should be good for very fast printing. And this is like a light gray. So we want to cut our filament on an angle so it's easy to push it through. And I'm going to twist this thing around so you guys can see. So we're going to put our spool where the filament rolls out the bottom onto the spool holder, and then from the bottom up we're going to go into the filament detector. There is a blue light that you can probably not see, but it does light up once filament goes through, and we're going to push it all the way to the hot end, which is where the direct drive is. And so here we need to unlock it. So I'm going to flip back around, and so that's going to toggle this lever here. So locked is that way, and then unlocked is this way. And so now we can push our filament through where the extruder teeth can grab it, and now we can lock it and then use the display in the settings and then extruder to extrude. So it's going to heat up the nozzle. And while we're waiting, guys, we did have this contraption that came with the printer. It is a 3D print, and I believe this is like an anti-tangle that goes here on the spool around it like this and clicks onto the holder, and then kind of goes down like that. Helps it where the filament doesn't get tangled when it retracts. But in any case, we are extruding. There's a bunch of white in there and it turned into gray. Kind of extruding a lot actually. Look at that. Oh, there we go. Just stopped. Let's click on home. We'll move that booger there. So we should be ready to go. So let's click on file. And here's some of the things we can print. Think out of tradition. Let's just start with this crazy 13-minute benchy. And that'll show off the speed, and plus we'll hear how loud it is at its maximum capabilities and how quick it's all moving. So here we have a preview. The temperatures is 220 and 60 on the bed. And we can also check calibration, which I'm not going to do since the machine is probably already calibrated. So we'll click print. And it starts. So it's going all the way up to home, which is over there in that corner. Now it's going back down. It's very quick. Okay, so it does like a clean out nozzle scrape over there in the back. So the machine is actually not very loud, just idling. It does have cooling fans on, and it's actually moderately quiet. And all the fan noises are quite pleasant. Alright, so it's going back up again, and now back down. So it kind of makes sense why you need this thing, because as it goes up, it stretches the filament. So the filament's kind of like all over the place in the back. Alright, so now it's preheating to 220, and it should purge over there and start printing. Alright, it's purging. So the offset looks perfect, what I can tell. And there it goes. Wow, first layer, ultra fast. So this is supposed to be a 13-minute benchy. What it says here also, we got 1%. And it's boogieing along at very, very quick speeds. And surprisingly, it's shockingly quiet for how fast it's moving. I wonder if having this CoreXZ has a lot to do with that. And it actually feels very stable too. So the input shaping is working very well. So I'm just gonna leave the camera running here. Yeah, 11 minutes left there. And we'll see what the Benchy looks like after it's done. Pretty incredible. I'm still blown away of how composed everything is, and there's very minimal shaking. And the noise is not obnoxious at all. All right, so our little boat is done. It actually took 13 minutes, which is incredible. So okay that. So if you wanted to pull off the Benchy quick, you could raise the build plate and put it on something and it will cool off really fast. But let's see if the Benchy pops off anyways. Okay, so it's stuck on there really well. You guys can see that. Go ahead and take this purge off. So the PEI sticks very well. So let's take a closer look here at the 13-minute Benchy. So this is optimized to be fast, meaning like it's quite lightweight and it doesn't have much infill. So yeah, the bottom looks great. You got that crinkle finish. There is a small lip, but very tiny though. We do have a little bit of sagging here, but other than that, it looks pretty good. This gray is not perfect filament, as it is a little bit aged. It's not a new roll or anything. Plus it's quite transparent with any kind of defects, so you guys can easily see. Yeah, just looking at it overall, it looks great. It's quite impressive how fast a Benchy can come out these days. And you know, anything in the 13 minutes, 15 minutes, even 20 minutes is really fast. So overall, the first print turned out great. We do have a few more things we can print straight off of the files here, but I think for the next part, let's go to settings and bind to Creality. So we're gonna get a little barcode there. So if you go to the Play Store, you can download the Creality Cloud app, and I already have it, so I'm gonna open it up, and this is what we see. So you have prints you can print. So some of these you have to pay for or use credits, and others are free. They have a bunch of free ones. But on the top here, we can see this little scan button. We can actually scan the QR code here to bind our printer. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And it finds it and it shows us the printer. So we'll click done. So it's gonna add it to our devices. And down here we can see we're on Workbench. Here we're on the Explore button, which for searching models, whatnot else, but our Workbench is where our printers are. And so these are all the printers that I have, where I've connected to this app. So here we can see our new one, which is the Ender-3 V3. And if we click on it, we can actually control it here from our phone. So you can be anywhere and be able to start or stop your print, I guess. And we also have settings down here which can control our filament detector, temperature, move, other settings. Okay, so the fan's on and off. So yeah, just basic stuff. We have a heat up button which you click it, it'll preheat everything. So yeah, pretty much what you expect. And what's cool about Creality Cloud is you can actually slice straight from here and print. If we go back and go to Explore, let's just type in calibration cube. And so we got quite a few here to choose from. So let's go ahead and slice it. So it's going to actually pull up the slicer, and here we can set the printer that we have. So you do need to do this separately, but our printer is right there. Now it says Ender-3 V3, and we have a balanced profile. So you can choose from different profiles here, or you can customly adjust it yourself. So yeah, it's quite comprehensive. It's just like a regular desktop slicer here right on your phone. And we can see our little calibration cube there, and we'll click on slice. So it's gonna slice it for us. And so from here we can preview or print. We'll click on print, and it's gonna show us the printer that's available. We're gonna click on our printer. We're gonna say yes, the build plate is ready to go. Click confirm. It's saying here it recommends enabling print calibration, so I guess we'll let it do its thing. So it's just gonna double check everything, and you guys can see, can't really see because the nozzle's on the top, but it is moving and it's coming down. And we did start this calibration cube right off our phone. So it's actually quite simple, guys, to use this printer. If all you do is have a phone, which everyone does, you can easily slice and make models and print without even having any kind of computer. Alright, so our little cube is done, and I actually printed another Benchy because I wanted to see how it would look if it was printed normally, which took 38 minutes here, it says on the display. And it will slice the same way as this cube. So we got the 13-minute Benchy and the 38 Benchy. Let's take a quick look here at the calibration cube. So we have axes, the X. We can see it looks pretty decent. Definitely not perfect. It does look good. The lighting does sometimes make it seem like there's layers, but it's just the way the light hits the filament there. But overall, it does look clean to the eye. Here we have the Y. So the Y is our bed, and it's very clean. And then the X wall, also very clean. Minimal vibrations or artifacts. And the Y wall, also very nice. And then we got the top here and the bottom. So yeah, very good print for the standard printing profile speed. So let's see this benchy here. The bed is cooled off completely, and yeah, it pops off really easy. But you guys probably be able to tell right away that this benchy looks much better than our first one, because this one is 38 minutes long. And it's definitely much cleaner all around and looks really, really good. And the cooling is great too. Overhangs are great. And here we have the comparison between the very fast one and the standard one. Pretty good on both. The standard is a bit better, obviously, but to be honest, this is not bad for being 13 minutes. We could probably speed things up in the profile where we can easily get a nice benchy for 30 minutes or less or so. But even at that standard speed, it's quite quick already and probably not worth saving a little bit of time for the quality degradation. So I think I'm gonna change the filament, print out maybe a few models here that we have as tests, and you guys can see we have a couple new added to the list of local as it keeps saving it. And by the way, the local storage is quite large at 8 gigabytes, so yeah, you can store quite a few models on here straight on the printer. We also do have the thumb drive, which I'm not sure if anything's on there. Let's click it in here and see. So click on USB, and what's interesting is all of the files that were there are also on the USB too. Well, I guess not all of them, but most of them. So yeah, you can choose to print either way you want. You can actually put stuff on your card and bring it to the printer, or obviously just use the Creality Cloud either through your phone or the computer. Alright, so we printed quite a few things with different materials, and the printer did very well with everything. So I stuck to using the standard profile, which is still very reasonably quick at 250 millimeters a second. Some stuff I printed a little slower at like 200. But yeah, with that said, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the models, and we'll start with the ones that were included with the printer, which for the first one here, we have this scraper. So this is all white PLA. I think it's in matte, so it's not as shiny. But yeah, as you guys can see, the layers go down very nicely. The offset is perfect. The PEI sheets hold on very well and pops off when it cools. Very good detail here. The layers are very even and everything looks great. And this printed out very quickly. So here we have a foam holder printed out flat like this. And it's kind of like a print in place. It prints just like that, and then it pops up. So you guys can see I didn't have to break anything loose. It just works. So it's gonna go like this, and your foam is gonna sit right in there like that. And yeah, this is a pretty fun one here. Very easy to print and could be useful, I guess. It's got little adjustments here, and probably actually big enough to even hold like an iPad. So yeah, pretty cool. So this print here was quite useful because I just dropped all the pins. But this is a test for the printer of multiple things, and we'll see if we can go through here fast. But we can see the overhangs, like the bridge. The bottom is nice. On the side here we have long overhangs, and you can see, guys, it did very well. And then we got this overhang here. Also was perfect, 215, and the bottom looks great too. You guys can see there. And then we got these pins here that pop out for how well the tolerances are. And you guys can see the first 3 pins here from the 0.6 to 0.4 just fell out. And the 0.2, let's see, yeah, it's moving around, so it wants to come out too. So yeah. Over here we got like a cone shape, and this is to test roundness / measuring these of diameter accuracy. And here we have a tower going up with these spike pins, and this is a great test for retraction. And you guys can see this printer did very well. There's a little bit of hazing, but look at those tips. They're ultra sharp and perfect. So yeah, this print alone here shows how accurate this printer really is and how well it does with everything. So for the next prints, I sliced from the phone in the Creality Cloud software, and here we have a Squirtle, which is a turtle / squirrel, I guess. And you guys can see how beautiful this thing turned out. And this is tricolor filament, so it kind of changes colors. But yeah, it's practically perfection, which is quite incredible. So yeah, just from the Creality Cloud, again, it just works. So here we have a pretty interesting print. This is like a fidget toy, and it's in 2 pieces. It actually comes apart here. So this prints separately. I printed this in black and this in white, and you guys can see how this is made here. And it's got like a thumbstick on it, kind of like a joystick, and you just put it together, kind of clips on. You fidget it around with it, I guess is the whole point. It's kind of like a fidget toy. And the little spring is actually really strong in there. Yeah, pretty cool. And by the way, all these models I found on the Creality Cloud, which is a great ecosystem for free and also premium or paid models that they have that are really nice. So this is a great model because this is like a gear and it has separate pieces all around. And this is a functional print. I like to print this because it tests the tolerances, and you guys can see this thing printed and just popped off like this, and shows that this printer has very good accuracy. Not only is it round, but there's good tolerances in between all the little gears. So yeah, there's like a little bit of a lip here, but other than that, it's a very nice print that's pretty much perfect. Here we have the octopus, also in that same tricolor filament. It also turned out excellent. So we have all these tentacles that have to stick to the bed, and they did without popping off. There's very minimal stringing or anything. There's a lot of retractions between the little pieces here. And this printed out really fast. I think it was about an hour or so. Might have been less, but in any case, it's pretty quick for this many retractions. So again, very impressive for the V3. Now what's even more impressive is probably this print here. So this is chainmail, and it was printed like this on the build plate. And you guys can see every piece is here and nothing broke loose or stuck or got messed up. And we have thousands and thousands of retractions here, guys. And look how well this turned out. So this is really a stress test for the extruder, and I guess also for the build plate, as it held everything down. Yeah, this is really fun to print as it looks like fabric. Also does a great test on the printer to see how well it performs with extreme retraction duty. And behind that we have a headphone stand, which is in black PLA. And by the way, all the prints we've seen here so far are PLA. And this turned out pretty well. I used the standard profile, but we did have a little bit of overhang issue here, and I think it needed supports. I didn't realize that this was more severe here. Can't really see it, and I think it can get cleaned up. But as far as the layers, they all look pretty good for being black. It's a pretty large item here. We did have a little bit of gooping here between the 2 sides as it retracted and moved back and forth. But again, that's easily cleaned up. And the top also looks pretty decent too. So overall, very nice. Here I have some headphones that beautifully fit on here. And it's actually a pretty nice holder to hold your headphones. And for our last PLA print, we have this vase. And this thing turned out amazing. And by the way, this and the phone holder were actually printed to the max height of 250 millimeters. So yeah, this kind of gives you an idea how tall you can print. But check out this vase, guys. So this is in spiralized mode. It's just one layer all the way around. So there's a few layers on the bottom, and then the rest is just one layer all the way up. And you guys can see this thing is really strong. Well, I just broke it, but it is PLA, so you can't push it too hard. And not only that, look at the quality of this thing. It just looks incredible. So yeah, spiralized mode, not a problem at all with this printer. So for the next models, we have PETG, ABS, and TPU. So for PETG, we got the Shark, which turned out really nice. So for this, all I did is just turn up the temperature, and this is what came out. Actually very nice. And I believe I did turn the speed down also to about 180 millimeters a second. So the Shark does have a mouth that should open. Let's go ahead and see if we can. And sure enough, it popped. Let's see. Okay, there we go. And all the teeth are intact and actually look pretty good. And again, this is PETG or PETG. So yeah, very nice actually. Everything looks good. So the next thing we have is ABS. And it's these two giant wheels. Now, I don't know why I decided to print two and why they're giant, but I was looking for some 1/10, but then when I saw how big they were, I was like, I wonder if this thing can do it, because it was covering, you know, a lot of the build plate, as they're quite large. And this is ABS, and if you know ABS, you need a lot of heat. So the printer did preheat to 100 on the bed, no problems. And we printed 250 on the nozzle, again at a little bit of a slower speed, about 180. And this is what we got. So let's go ahead and look at one of them. So we can see the layers actually went down really nice here towards the top. But on the bottom, we did need the support in there. Everything looks decent. We do have a little bit of layer separation here. And I think it's because it needs more wall thickness. Or maybe just supports, I'm not sure. But in any case, it needs to be adjusted a bit. But what's impressive is it did stick and never popped off on both of these wheels, which are in ABS. So if you want to do ABS printing on the V3, you can on smaller items, and it looks like it's somewhat capable of larger ones too. And so for our last print, we have a little rocket here, and this is printed in TPU, as you can see this yellow roll here. So it is still stuck to the build plate. Let's see how easy it comes off. And we can see on the bottom, we do have a little bit of stringing on the first layer for whatever reason. It almost looks like it wasn't retracting. And you guys can see the bottom looks really good. It's stuck, but the more impressive part is the layers, guys. Check out how smooth they are. Extremely smooth layers, which is incredible. So this is spiralized mode in TPU, which really shows off the capabilities of TPU. Well, this thing is, wow. I've never seen them this sealed well. Usually I can just push it and it leaks out, but this one's sealed very well. But anyways, TPU, you can really fold and do things to it, and then it just bounces back. So just this one is sealed so well, it takes a little bit here for it to bounce back. Yeah, I've never seen one sealed that well, and I printed quite a few of these. So again, this printer keeps impressing, even here with TPU. And again, I'm very impressed with how well the layers went down. So the CoreXZ is producing extremely good results here with any filament at quite high speed printing. But there are a few things to note about this printer, which one here is with maintenance. We do have rods, so there was grease included, so you do have to keep these lubricated as they dry out reasonably quick. And if you don't lubricate them, they're going to start to wear out pretty quick. So yeah, rods are important to keep grease, so every 10 uses or so, put a little lube on the rods. The only other thing that maybe is an issue is because this goes up and down and the filament's in the back here. When this goes down, the spool wants to unspool, so this anti-lash thing that came with mine does keep it from unspooling, but it makes the filament kind of go to the back, and then it grabs on this back motor, you guys can see. But I had filament break because they caught on the motor once, kind of went underneath it and caught on it. Most of the time it just kind of jumps around, but if you can stick around for the first layer, you can just wind it back yourself and it's not an issue. But I did find that could be an issue. Another thing that's kind of a nuisance is you can't always feed your filament through the hot end very easily, even unlocking it and trying to pushing it through. It's kind of finicky and it doesn't always go through. So using the load and unload works well, but if you can't get it down to those gears where it pushes it, you might have to take off the tube here from the top and kind of manually feed it yourself, which again, it's not all the time, but some filaments, I guess, even cutting on an angle, don't want to go through, and I have to fiddle around with it a bit. But other than that, this is an incredible printer that's quite capable, and as you can see, can print pretty much anything. The build construction is excellent. Cast aluminum on the base and the gantry. We got the very unique CoreXZ configuration for the upper portion, and the Y rides on rails, also the X. The hot end is very capable. Love this little light up LED for the Creality logo. We got dual parts cooling fans. Extruder seems to do very well with any filament, including TPU. We have an excellent screen here with high resolution, very easy to use, connect, and just a great UI overall. We do have a USB option here on the side, and also a very great build volume of 220 by 220 by 250 millimeters tall. And this vase here shows you guys how tall it can print. And also, not to forget to mention the ceramic heating block on the hot end, which can easily do 300 C, and the bed heats up to 100 with the PEI build plate that works very well. So yeah guys, as you can see, this is a very capable printer, definitely quite premium. The build quality is very nice and everything seems to be very well thought through. So this would be a great printer for anyone that is just getting started, as it is quite intuitive for the most part. And pairing this thing with the Creality app makes it really easy to control everything from your phone. slice prints, send them to the printer. You can see the printer status, what it's up to, and actually you could install a little camera here also to view what you're printing. So yeah, the hardware and software together make this a very compelling 3D printer, not only for beginners, but anyone else that just wants a printer that works out of the box. And even though the printers are getting more complicated and feature packed, the Ender-3 V3 still delivers a great premium experience for everything you get. So if you guys are interested in this printer, I'll have some links in the description. Check it out. And if you did enjoy this video, then hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, check out my 3D printing playlist. I'm sure you'll find something interesting there. And also stay tuned for more 3D printer reviews. We got a lot of interesting things coming up. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.